On July 7, 1903, Mary Harris Jones led the March of the Mill Children, a 3-week-long strike that brought awareness to and ultimately ended the dangerous conditions of child labor. Children as young as 4 were working with industrial machinery with no personal protection equipment. As a result, many died from injury, exhaustion, and exposure to toxins. The strike drew the attention of major newspapers and forced people to rethink the way they viewed children. This strike was a major influence in the decision to extend the age of adolescence to 18 years old. In the year 2060, parents are considered legal guardians of their children until they are 20 years old, and it is more common for children to live with the parents until they are 22 or 23. This transition really started way back in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. As the world shut down, everything began to take place digitally, including work and school. In the aftermath, researchers noticed that test scores of children in this generation were dramatically lower than students from previous years. As the children got older, the number of students required to repeat grade levels increased, and the number of students pursuing higher education decreased. This also led to an increase in the number of houseless individuals. Because they had to repeat grades, there were more students over the age of 18 attending high school. Students were kicked out or attempted to move out on their own while still in high school and were unable to adequately support themselves. Consequently, most dropped out or became houseless. These startling statistics led Congress to increase the age of a legal adult to 20 years old. Although the entire U.S. population was affected by these changes, BIPOC women and children were impacted the most. BIPOC women are more likely to be the primary caretaker of their children, meaning that the burden of caring for the children for 2 additional years would most likely fall on the mother. Schools whose population is made of predominantly children of color generally receive less funding and provide a lower standard of education. Because of this, these students are 3 times more likely to have to repeat a grade. Predominantly Black and brown communities were hit the hardest during the COVID-19 pandemic. They were the least likely to have access to Wi-Fi and the least likely to have jobs that could be done remotely. This demographic makes up the largest cohort of students required to repeat a grade. Education is highly valued in American culture. The higher your educational level, the more likely you are to receive a higher paying job and the more respected you are in general society. With education comes status and wealth. The Black Lives Matter protests that occurred across the world during the summer of 2020 helped many young people recognize the power they have in influencing their government and their future. Thus, the majority of Gen Z have become good at advocating for better conditions for themselves and others. 2 things that I've learned in this course are a better understanding of social youth activism and how our structural determinants can lead us to become activists. When learning about social justice and youth development, I really had to reconstruct my own definition of youth activism. Before this course, I really only saw youth activism as like 18 and 21-year-olds going out and protesting, because those are the ones that gain the most attention in media. But the younger generation, like even kids as young as 10 years old, can become advocates and activists in their own ways. And our structural determinants really determine how we view ourselves within the world, the things that we have access to. The most disenfranchised individuals are the most aware of how outside influences can determine the things that they have access to. So the most infected individuals should be the ones that we listen to and uplift the most. Taking this course has really broadened my understanding and definition of public health. Usually when people ask me what public health is, I say something along the lines of, it's the study of how to prevent disease or illness, and then I'll go on to explain that encompasses many different aspects of life. However, it didn't really occur to me that youth activism or activism of any sort could be a part of public health. In hindsight, it makes sense because the public is advocating to change the things that influence their health, but the more I learn within public health, the more complex it becomes.